fabulous fall day here in Southern Ontario, which puts us all in a really good mood. This is the Sportsline Podcast. We appreciate you watching or listening. I'm Bubba O'Neill on the CHCH multimedia platform. As always, this podcast is a space for the outstanding athletes, coaches, and sports executives that got their start right here in Southern Ontario. But today we're talking about what really is the game of the year that's happening Friday night right here in Hamilton. Let's talk to a Winnipeg native that quite honestly is living out his dream. Out of old Ryerson University, now known as Toronto Metropolitan University, this fella has crafted a career on radio along with local and national television. Derek Taylor is a character and a professional. And after gaining experience as the play-by-play announcer for the University of Manitoba, his microphone talent was recognized by not one, but two teams in the Canadian Football League. Hey, we've had all kinds of Ticats talk around these parts of late, so in the interest of fairness and balance, let's bring in the voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Derek Taylor. Pleasure, my friend.
It is great to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
Right on, DT. I'm going to trust you just got into your hotel, a good flight. Yeah, everything was okay?
Yeah, I have this thing where I hope to be asleep before it takes off and wake up just before it lands, so mission accomplished today.
I did kind of see you peek up a little bit there just before we got on air. Can you let us know, is that a Dolly Parton T-shirt that you're wearing?
It is. My wife is an enormous Dolly Parton fan, like enormously so. So she got this T-shirt. I forget where or when she got it, but yeah, she got it. It didn't fit her, so she said, "Hey, how would you like this T-shirt?" And I said, "Hey, that works for me." So yeah, it's pretty good.
We're all searching for the cool tees nowadays and looking good in that, buddy. Hey, let's talk about a couple of things before we get to the game. I think people don't really know about you because, and I think probably a lot of people are happy to see you because it's been a while here in these parts to see you on TV. And you've been primarily on radio since 2019. And again, most folks in Southern Ontario recognize you as the anchor at TSN. You did a lot of work on the CFL on TSN broadcast. But before that, there was this.
If you had one food in your fridge for the rest of your life as leftovers, chili, pizza.
That's what you'd have?
Which one would you pick?
Oh, well, it would definitely be pizza.
You'd go. I would go chili in that, but I think
Really?
that's a good. Oh, so much chili. But those are two great leftover foods.
So much chili.
It would be the perfect food. Perfect to have in the fridge. Just heat it up. Oh yeah, look at Eva Kovacs and Mike Conkin, and there he is. Yeah.
Look at you as the prankster on global morning television, my friend. When do those days, when was this?
So that was 2012 to 2014. So we started that show in early 2012, and then November of 2014 when I left for TSN. So I'd been at Global for quite a while doing the Fox Soccer Report, but then I wanted morning hours, which sounds crazy, but my wife worked morning hours. So I thought, oh, well, if this has an opportunity for me, and yeah, working with Eva and Mike was incredible, right? If you've ever done those morning hours, you know you need the right people with you, both on screen and behind. And yeah, they were a delight, and we're all still friends to this day. So those were such good memories. And
you're a media family. Your wife's in television too, is she not?
She was for a long time, yeah. Okay. Fiona Odlum was she was the helicopter traffic lady in Winnipeg. She did some when she was out in Toronto as well. Yeah, she just recently left to take a job on the other side with better hours because she doesn't have to get 15-hour flight delays coming back from Vancouver like I have this season. So she's left the nonsensical hours behind, bless her heart.
You know, we talk about what you've done on radio and being in the Canadian Football League, and I know that football is a passion of yours, and being able to, we look at I think the big franchises, and all due respect to so many of the other places, I think that, the most passionate places are certainly Saskatchewan, Regina, and Winnipeg and Hamilton, and somehow you've monopolized two of the play-by-play jobs there. You were with the Rough Riders, and then you ended up with the Bombers. You have to admit, based on the Banjo Bowl, that's almost sacrilege, DT.
It really is. It was a hard transition to make, and you just have to hope that everybody is kind of okay with it. And there's some Rider fans who won't get over it, and there's some Bomber fans who are still kind of would take shots at me for representing the Riders for a few years. But I kind of just wanted to do play-by-play, right? And when the opportunity came up in 2019 with that Riders job, my wife was already working in Saskatchewan. She loved it there. So we're like, hey, why don't we move to Regina and we can both have jobs there? And we loved it. Like, we literally loved Regina. And those were some pretty fantastic years for the Riders, right? 13-5, went to the West Final, 9-5, beat the Stamps in the West semifinal, then lost the West Final to a super-powered Winnipeg team. But those were some pretty glorious years. Okay, pandemic obviously took a little bit out of there, but you know, the football was pretty great during my time there. So we loved it. We would still be there if we could. Yeah.
Could you tell me about the first game you did as a play-by-play guy of the Bombers against the Rough Riders?
Oh gosh, would it have been I feel like there was a trip to Regina in the preseason in 2022, and if not, it would have been Labor Day. But I feel like it was a 2022 preseason trip, and then it was. I was like, well, is this going to be awkward because left and came back? But like the crew behind the scenes, the folks I used to work with at the radio station were fantastic. My old color commentator partner Luke Mullender was great. It was easier than I thought it was. I had a good relationship with the folks in the Riders organization. So Ariel Zur, who handles all their communication, she's been nothing but great to me along the way. So it was, I had some uncomfortability about it, thinking, might this be something? But then no, it wasn't. And then this is I think a pretty solid move I'd recommend to anybody. When it came to the Labor Day game, I agreed to be in a dunk tank for charity. So I was just savaging the Riders with Bombers related trivia, and people were hammering balls at the dunk tank and dunking me into some not really clean water. So I think that may help me endear myself back to them just a little bit.
For broadcasters like us, it's certainly great to have someone as your partner who played the game. I know I've got Mike Daly on the Ticats audio network, who I work with on game day, and you talked about Luke Mullender, who's as outspoken as anyone, and Doug Brown as well too. He really knows how to bring it.
Yeah, they really do, right? And they carry a lot of weight when they say when they're critical of stuff, right? Like, because I could start going off on, you know what, you should really go for two more, and you probably shouldn't have punted there. And head coach Mike O'Shea of the Bombers would be like, oh, yeah, I'm in the Hall of Fame, and I had the most wins in franchise history, and you have a spreadsheet, apparently. So, but when Doug Brown or Luke start talking about it, like Doug Brown's in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, right? Like our booth looks across to the Blue Bombers Ring of Honor, and there's 97 Doug Brown. So there's a real gravitas to that. So when he gets fired up about something, like it's for real. And then when he and I agree on something, I feel like I'm a little smarter that day. So yeah, no, it's great because while I'm building up my own credibility with the audience, these guys who they have known and loved and may well have jerseys of, their credibility is long established. So it helps us as a broadcast duo for sure.
One of the things that certainly helps me as a broadcaster is I listen to all your games. And Doug Brown was a guy that was pretty fired up with the Bombers and that 0-4 start. Now they've ripped off 7 in a row. Caleros throws 6 touchdowns, and last week's, that's a career high 6 touchdowns, and last week's 55-27 blowout. What happened? What's going on?
Yeah, so for the whole season, I've been kind of pointing back to things like bad luck and injuries being a problem. And, Nick Dembski had fumbled the ball 4 times in whatever it was, the first 7 games. And you look back and go, well, he'd only fumbled once in the previous 2 seasons combined. So that's not going to keep happening. That luck is going to regress to the mean, and everything should be fine. They get a little healthier. They decide, hey, we're going to go to Carrick Wheatfall, who caught one of those touchdown passes, instead of Josh Johnson, because we know we're not getting Dalton Schoen back. And the more that crew, this receiving core as it stands now, gets reps with Zach Caleros, the more they'll be in the right place at the right time. And I think as Bomber fans, we've really seen that more so than just about anything else, receivers being in the right place at the right time, able to make ridiculous sideline catches in the end zone, like Lawler obviously is great, but being in the right place at the right time is such a big deal. We could point to dozens of examples of how it's led to interceptions or incompletions or just frustration. But to me, it was the right game plan. It was the right guys in the right place at the right time. And yeah, a little bit of luck went their way because 6 touchdown passes for Collaros, 432 yards, and 55 points that's a special night.
Yeah, you know what the thing was, again, listening to you on the radio, you wanted more. You wanted 60.
Well, because last year there were a bunch of 50s, right, to the point where people started to enjoy that I would just say 50, right, when it would get to 50. And they said, well, what are you going to do when they get to 60, which totally seemed probable last year. This year, I haven't really had to think about it at all. But now maybe I do. Like, am I going to go low with the 60? You know, you don't really necessarily plan these things out ahead of time, but will I go low with the 60? Will I go in even higher range, like a Mariah Carey range or something that even Dolly herself can't get to? We'll have to see. It sure ain't going to be Friday night against the Ticats, but maybe somewhere in the future.
Yeah, I'm going to predict that doesn't happen. Let me show you why. There's some interesting history for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers when they check into Tim Hortons Field over the years. 4 straight losses. And that's a variety of different types of Ticat teams. Obviously, the 2019 team is the one that won 15, a franchise high 15 wins. And then there's been some struggling teams over the years that actually have gotten the better of the Bombers. I'll ask you this, and I know you haven't been part of the long history of the Blue Bombers coming to Hamilton. What's up with this sort of trend?
Yeah, it's super weird, right? And we've been talking about it a bunch this season because 23 and 22, it's later in the season, it's the Bombers heading into the bye week, and it's a trip to Hamilton, and it's a variety of different Hamilton players and quarterbacks. And right in that 22 game, that was the best game Dane Emmons might ever play in his life. And you go, what's happening here? The Bombers are turning the ball over, and just they never really felt like they were in that game. And that was the year they were 15-3, and so obviously that was just, we were shell-shocked in the booth going, what is happening here? Why is this? And then some decisions later, you went, oh, that's just compounding the problems that we're having here. Tyreek McAllister's returning, missed converts for defensive 2-pointers, which is what happened like 8 times in the history of the league. And this is strange. So, yeah, consecutive trips late in the season into bye weeks, they've just been undone by the Ticats. And it's so strange. And Mike O'Shea will just say we haven't played well enough. I feel like these guys, every player's kind of got to look at himself and go, okay, what am I doing when we get to Hamilton? Was it staying in Burlington last season? Was there something else? Like literally, because what else? Bubba, they've lost 7 games in the regular season in those 2 years. 2 of them were in Hamilton. Like it just, you'd have to look for anything. I don't believe in curses, but that's on the table, honestly, because it's so. They felt like if you power ranked them, they were better teams than the Ticats, but they were not better teams on those days, which is the only thing that honestly matters.
Well, the crazy thing to me is that under no circumstances would I accept or even believe that a Mike O'Shea coach team would come into Steeltown looking by them, bypassing them, or just taking the Ticats lightly. I don't believe it. Yeah,
which is why I think some of us are probably drawn to it was heading into a bye week. That 2022 season, they started off 9-0, and they were going into a bye week after a Week 10 game against Montreal, and they fell apart in that one, end up losing. I believe it was in overtime. They lost that one, and we started to wonder, okay, is there something about heading into bye weeks? This could all just be coincidence, right? Because you lose 7 games, something weird might happen along the way. But yeah, we're kind of searching for answers. And then as Bomber fans, I think they're hoping for a significantly better performance this one. They're not heading into a bye. And in this one, like, this is a meaningful game. The Bombers with a win would knock BC. BC would have no chance of finishing first in the regular season if the Bombers win. And with the Bombers win and the Riders loss, the Bombers clinched the West Final at home. So this game's a big deal. They're coming off their best performance of the season offensively. Finally, they got one. It would be a real surprise if there is a similar letdown to the past 2 seasons on Friday.
And I think this is what makes Friday night's game just so appealing, in the fact that the Bombers are playing so good. They are such a great story. I mean, I myself got caught calling the Bombers old. It's time to tear it apart. And, look what they've done. Everything that we've talked about in terms of them being old and veteran-like, well, it's those guys that have flipped the switch and have realized that this is the time to play. With that saying, the Tiger Cats, in a little smaller version, with 4 in a row, basically looking like the season is over, all of a sudden there's some juice in this contest, because they too need to win to keep their faint playoff hopes alive, and maybe even hope for a Western crossover, which we know has never happened. When you take a look at this Ticats team, what are you seeing?
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of it where I mentioned bad luck being a problem for the Bombers early on. I really feel like bad luck was a problem for the Ticats early on. Was the game in Saskatchewan against the Riders where Saskatchewan ties it and then Bo's first pass bounces off? It was in Hamilton. Yep. Bounces off of Tim White. CJ Avery picks it off in field goal range, and you go, okay, well, come on. What is that? When does that happen? Tim White couldn't catch the ball. Tim White is an awesome receiver, like all-star level for his entire career level receiver, couldn't catch the ball. And is this like Chuck Knobloch in the end of his career? He couldn't throw it to first. Like, is this the football version of that? It was so strange, right? That's obviously been rectified. You're getting some, real offensive performers. Keandre Smith has had some real peaks. Shamar Bridges, is rookie of the year level play, right? So you take that, you iron out some stuff, you get thrust into Bo Levi Mitchell back at quarterback after the Taylor Powell injury. And then, if you remember the Hamilton game in Winnipeg, like Chris Jones did some things in that game. They picked off Kolaris 3 times. Zach on one play had no idea what is this? What am I looking at? I'm so frustrated that what is happening? It's Chris Jones stuff, but I haven't seen this, right? So everything kind of goes in their way. So when bad luck fades, and I don't know if they're necessarily trended into good luck or even just average luck, but when the bad luck of the one drop ball essentially costs you the game, when that stuff fades and you can get back to, okay, who are we really? Oh, we're a team that we can mash the ball with Greg Bell pretty well. We have weapons at receiver, absolutely. And Bo, if the Bombers, do their 3-man rush, drop 9 against Bo, he's just going to navigate the pocket and wait for some spots. And Tim White's going to run 6 routes and pop open and bang, there's 25 yards. You go, okay, yeah, this is a team that has some talent. And I just feel like the football gods got in their way. I don't know how to describe it any more so than that.
Well, it's true that you do bring up that game against, I believe that was mid-August when the Ticats went to Princess Auto Stadium, and it was, I couldn't believe, because it was Chris Jones is officially calling the defense his first game, and it was an unbelievable difference. And you talked about it, the 3 turnovers, and the fact that the offense was able to move the ball, probably because of the fact they weren't always at their own starting drives at their own 10-yard line, right? They were able to get some shorter drive starts, and Bo Levi Mitchell looked sharp. And quite honestly, the fact that they kept the Bombers out of the end zone for the better part of 59 minutes, that was a close call, that game.
Yeah, that's a real thing that's going on in the CFL right now. And folks who maybe didn't see the first game will see it tomorrow with the Bombers. Like any second and long situation, they're dropping everybody into coverage. And Chris Jones in that game, it was a lot of 3- and 4-man rushes and 8 and 9 dropping into coverage, because we're going to keep the top on you. You're not going to be able to stretch us down the field. And 2, good luck finding the holes in 9 guys. And Zach is phenomenal at things like that, but it got him that day. And then you add in the one interception that bonked off a guy's helmet. What do you do about that, right? You'll see 2 teams that are really trying to suppress the big play. And, when you find it, when they get a chance to find it, when there's a bust, which quarterback is going to be able to hit it will be very interesting and might well decide the game, because, Bubba, both these teams have guys that can break games wide open with a single play. Bam, 75 yards, touchdown. But will Chris Jones, will Jordan Younger let those be available just with how they're going to play this game? Like, when I think of Bo's career, there's no point in blitzing Bo Levi Mitchell. There's just no point.
Yeah,
because he's not as much as he's not a scrambler or a runner like Michael Riley, his old running, his old, ally or whatever, opponent earlier on in his career, to a Taylor Cornelius or a Vernon Adams. Bo isn't that kind of scrambler, but he always seems like, you could plop him in the middle of the 401 at the heaviest traffic, and he'd be just fine. He'd be like, I'm navigating this, boop, 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 there's my receiver. He's phenomenal under pressure.
And he's seemingly enjoying it, too.
It's great, which this is a real revival, right, for Bo. Like, that may be the storyline of the CFL that surprised me the most this season. Montreal is good, but that's maybe not a surprise. Calgary's bad. I thought they were going to be bad, but I hadn't seen great Bo since 2018, and we're getting great Bo this year. And I'm in the pocket, and I'm gonna grip it and rip it. And you know what? I need to buy me 4.5 seconds to do it. I'm gonna 4.5's a little exaggeration, but you know what I mean. He can really make things work, and when you add all those extra elements around him. And it's 2024 in the CFL. If the line can hold up enough, because a lot of teams are just, let's hold up just enough to keep them alive. Things. I mean, you're seeing what Hamilton could be these last 4 weeks.
A lot of people, and there's a lot of discussion that's gone from local to national about Bo possibly being a candidate for the East for the most outstanding player award in the Canadian Football League. And of course, there's several arguments and tentacles to that. But then I look at the West right now and who would be the representative for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I mean, and you got a phrase that you call Brady ball, and of course, Brady Oliveira has really cranked up his game. But then on the back end, defensively, there's the rookie Tyrell Ford, who's got 6 interceptions. I want to ask you straight up, because I'm hearing splits within this discussion from the play-by-play announcer of the Bomber. Who's the Winnipeg MOP?
Yeah, I think if we voted today, for me, it would be Brady Oliveira. But you're right. Like, it's Brady and it's Tyrell Ford. Like, Ford has been fantastic on that back end with the 6 interceptions and some big game-breaking ones. But, I mean, Brady's giving us, as Bomber fans, he's been kind of the driver of some of these wins along the way. And that touchdown against Edmonton last week was one of those signature plays that I think voters will remember of. He broke a tackle and he pulled the ball away from a guy trying to strip it from him, and he broke another tackle, and somehow he kept his balance, and then he powered into the end zone. That's one that, as a voter, you'll kind of remember in your mind and go, yeah, that's my guy. I think ultimately it goes to Brady in the end, because it ends up being an offensive award, but Tyrell Ford would be a tremendous candidate with the year he's had in the corner. His first year back from the NFL, he was, the field side corner in day one on training camp and has never given up that spot. He and Evan Holm are such a great duo on that side. They work their calls out, and they're all over everybody. And yeah, I don't want to discuss what's going to happen in free agency, because they're both free agents. Don't anybody take them away, because we love them. But yeah, for me, it just at this moment, it's Brady, because Bobby, I've talked about this with you before. I'm not the biggest guy on the importance of running backs in the CFL, because it's an almost 70% passing game. But there are wins the Bombers would absolutely not have if Brady wasn't such a beast. So right now, there are still probably two meaningful games to go for the Bombers. It's Brady and then Tyrell, and then probably a gap to Willie Jefferson in third. But still some stuff could happen. And this is just the craziest MOP year I can remember in my lifetime.
Well, the fact that we have even more than one defensive person in the CFL that people are talking about for MOP, because it just doesn't happen. It's generally that quarterback award, and people believe that the most outstanding defensive player, that takes care of the MOP award right there with the defensive award. But yeah, it is certainly wide open. The fact that we're talking about a quarterback that's playing on a sub 500 team that's been who's been outstanding, but that's how close it has been this year. Parity is not only in the Canadian Football League, but it's in the awards banquet as well too. Should be a fun one. And also what should be a fun one is Friday night's contest. It's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Hamilton Tiger Cats, two of the hottest teams in the Canadian Football League. And I'll tell you, Derek, I know you're going to provide a good call for your listeners as well too. Certainly appreciate your time. I'm glad you got here nice, safe and sound. Hopefully I can find you tomorrow, because that's going to be a big one to talk about tomorrow. And let's just hope for a good game.
Yeah, and just for all Bomber fans, this may not apply for Ticats fans, but I just hope the Bombers don't just lay an egg like they have the last couple of years. It's been rough to watch on this side. It's been probably pretty great to watch on that side. I would love a good football game because, man, this is so meaningful playoff-wise for both teams that I want to see both teams at their best, and let's go.
We need it more than you do.
Very true. That said, I wouldn't mind if they clinched it up and just wrap this thing up so I can start prepping for the West Final.
DT, appreciate your time, partner.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's your Sportsline Podcast for the day. And if you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. Oh, Ticats, Bombers, it's so juicy. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline Podcast, we want to hear from you. Hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. In addition, be sure to check out the other podcasts we do have to offer, like Trending Now and Newsmakers with Louis Butko. The highly skilled people that make the Sportsline Podcast possible on a daily basis. Thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.